Hi, my name is Chris.
Hi, my name is Shaker.
Hi, my name is Tyler, and we are the Backmarkers F1 Show, and you're listening to F1 Online Decoded.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of F1 Online Decoded. Now today is another special interview, as we speak to a channel from another part of the world. Now I've done this before on this channel, and it's a great insight to what it's like to be a fan and run a channel in another part of the world. This interview sees us going to the Great White North of Canada as we sit down to interview the three guys behind the Backmarkers F1 YouTube channel. It was an amazing interview as we sat down to talk everything Formula 1, from how they got into the sport, how the Backmarkers YouTube channel came about, and how they've managed to do a big interview with the team personnel from the paddock. We also talked their ambitions on YouTube, and will they ever become the face of Canada for Formula 1 YouTube. This was a great interview. In light of no Canadian Grand Prix this weekend, we have some great Canadian content coming your way. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 7 of F1 Online Decoded with the Canadian boys, which is the Backmarkers YouTube channel. Enjoy.
Yes, perfect intro, guys. That was awesome. I thought we would, go a different direction and mess that up, but no, it was awesome. So, guys, obviously back again for another interview. This one is a special one because, Canadian Grand Prix, and you guys are Canadian, so even more of an excited, even more of a purpose to this. And of course, as we said, kind of off screen beforehand, we should have had a race here in Canada a long time since the start, almost 2 months now since the Australian Grand Prix, and still no racing. It's a massive, massive shame, but nevertheless, we can fill our time with F1 and talking and what we're doing right now. So obviously, how are you guys doing? It's exciting to talk to people from different parts of the world. North American Formula 1 channel. Very interested in talking to you guys, see how you got into F1 and stuff. But first of all, how are you doing? And obviously, how are you feeling your time in through this lockdown that we're in right now?
Yeah, it's pretty boring without F1. There's not a whole lot of things to do, and pretty much there's no other sports either, too. So it's not even like you can kind of fill the void with F1 with something else. But yeah, you're trying to just take it day by day and find things to do. So it's nice to be able to chat with you guys as well and talk a little F1 for, a while now. It hasn't been much F1 talk, so it's nice to be on.
Yeah, it's pretty much just been video games and a lot of TV shows and movies to fill the time, and picked up a lot of hobbies that I stopped doing, so which is nice. Started.
Yeah. So what kind of hobbies? What are they?
I picked up my guitar again. It's been a while since I played that. Started reading a little bit more, just stuff to fill the time throughout the day, pretty much. But yeah, no, it's been kind of odd not having any sports on the weekend or just throughout the week in general, really. So yeah, it's nice talking to you guys about this, like Chris said.
Yeah, it's been really weird. I found myself now with the itch to watch racing. I started watching marble racing, and let me tell you, it's hard to bet on marble racing when you don't know what the hell what you're doing. So, but it's crazy though what everything has happened over the last few months and how quickly everything shut down. We saw what happened in Australia where, everyone was there at the track. Everyone was ready to go for the race, and last minute they pulled the plug on it, and you just have to think the financial impact for all the teams. After going into Australia, now having to pull all their gear and team back to their local facilities, how much that costs and how much Formula 1's losing in general. It's wild how this whole economy in sports has kind of blundered over the last month. And it's only been a month. It's amazing to show how one little glitch in the world's economic system can really screw with sports in general and everyone's finances.
Yeah, exactly. It's been absolutely crazy. Obviously, as I say, coming out over Canada, hopefully things have improved in different parts of the world. But it's really hard to say. And of course, in terms of Formula 1, we just hope that we get back there straight away. But obviously, thanks for that. Going really in depth into the situation at the moment. So, getting to our interview. Obviously, you're all Formula 1 fans, because if you weren't, we wouldn't be talking about Formula 1. So as we've said at the start, North American fans, Canadian fans. But how did you get into Formula 1 at first? Where did your love come from? Were you instantly hooked? How did you get in? And can you elaborate on that? Did you have a favourite driver, favourite team? obviously from Canada, was it like people like Gilles Villeneuve and, the Canadian Grand Prix race like that? So, for example, Michael Schumacher and the World Champions. How did you get into Formula One? And, how did your love grow, obviously, over the years to, obviously, the stage you are at right now?
Yeah, personally for me, I started watching like most people when I was really young, because my dad was a big Formula One fan, and like my parents are from Europe, from former Yugoslavia, so they were like really big into Formula One. Obviously, a lot more in Europe than it is here in North America. So they used to go to the Hungarian Grand Prix a lot when they were young and in the 30s and stuff. So they kind of like translated over to me. And yeah, my earliest memories are like watching Michael Schumacher and the Ferrari. And I like the only thing I really remember clearly was the V10 engines at that time. So I get like really nostalgic for the V10 engines, even though people make fun of me sometimes for it, because like the new fans that aren't too familiar with that era of Formula One. But that's what I remember really in particular, is watching like both Schumachers actually. Like I really was a big fan of Ralf Schumacher as well. In the Williams BMW days, I used to have like a little Ralf Schumacher model car with the Williams BMW. So I kind of really started from there, and then also like going to a lot of IndyCar races here too. So that kind of helped like promote the fan of motor racing. And then last couple of years just got really, really heavy into Formula One again, which has been great.
For me, it wasn't until about 2 years ago when these guys asked me to help out with the podcast, to be honest. So yeah, as I started to help these guys out more, I started to get more into F1 and started following it a little bit more. And I mean, nowhere close to the knowledge that these guys have on F1, but yeah, slowly learning.
For me, I mean, like Chris, I started watching when I was a young kid. My family's half Italian, so it was very easy to go to the red Ferraris, and I was a big Michael Schumacher fan when I was a kid, and I'd watch with my uncle and my grandpa. We'd watch races here in Canada, and then on my other side of the family, they're big NASCAR fans. So I had the Formula One and I had the NASCAR. So I always had racing, and I kind of lost the passion for it in my mid-teens. When I realized that I don't have enough money to become a race car driver, I can't fulfill my dream. But once around 2010, 2010, I started getting back really into it. And what really hooked me back was I sat down to watch a race, and Jenson Button coming back in the wet in Canada. And that still stands to me as one of my favorite races of all time. My favorite race of all time. One, because it got me back into the sport, and two, it's an absolute classic. So that's how I got back into it, and it's been loving it ever since.
Awesome, yeah, definitely. I mean, we're going to get onto 2011 in a little bit as well, or maybe graze over it. So, obviously, you mentioned, two of you mentioned that you're a fan of Michael Schumacher and the Ferraris. But what about now, though? Do you have a favourite driver, a favourite team in F1? And Shaker, you said, obviously, we'll get on the show in a little bit in the next question, but you mentioned that you weren't really into F1 until you got on the channel. So again, who did you start following? And then obviously as I said for you other guys, who are you following right now? So obviously you have a favourite team. I mean, are you quite patriotic? Are you like a Stroll or a Latifi, or who's your favourite driver and who's your favourite team on the current grid or of 2019 grid at the moment? Sorry, the 2020 grid at the moment, obviously before racing.
So
yeah, I think.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, Shaker.
Well, I was just gonna answer the beginning part of that question, where when I started helping out with the podcast, I knew of the names like Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel when I was before getting into it, and Michael Schumacher and all heard those names beforehand. So when I first started to get into it, I had a few friends that were fans of the sport. Including Chris and Tyler. So when I first started, and still now, I'm still a big Max fan and Red Bull fan. I was also, still a huge Daniel Ricciardo fan. I like the whole team dynamic when they were on the team. But yeah, that's kind of still one of my favorite teams and drivers at the moment. I'm also a huge soccer Netherlands fan. So kind of worked out.
Why? What? So just quickly, just on you. Why? What? The Netherlands? I mean, is there any connection there, or was it Matt? Did you watch Max first, and then you're like, oh, I'm a Netherlands fan for soccer?
So, well, one of the main things is I've been to Amsterdam like through the Netherlands about 3 or 4 times now. So I don't know. It was just going to Europe. That's like the only team in the city in Europe I had been in, like through when I was going back home. So it was just became a huge fan of them that way. And then as well as when I was, I always mentioned earlier that I was also a Man United fan. So when I was I was a huge Man United fan as a kid, and getting back into it, Robin van Persie was on the team. The whole Netherlands connection kind of worked out that way. So.
Yeah. That's good. That's good connection. So I mean, you were the guys as well. So obviously you mentioned there. So yeah, I mean, you didn't say who was, you know, obviously Max and Red Bull, but what are you other guys? You know, favorite drivers, favorite teams?
Yeah, we usually get a lot of flack for this in the comments, but because we get called Ferrari fanboys. Well, me in particular, but I know, like, as members of the media, we're technically not supposed to have a favorite, but my favorite is definitely Ferrari and Sebastian Vettel at the moment. Which is pretty funny because I didn't actually like Vettel while he was at Red Bull, because Mark Webber used to be one of my favorites at the time. And I used to think Vettel was, you know, a little bit arrogant and some other words as well. But I don't know, like, since he came to Ferrari, maybe it was just kind of like reconnecting with the whole Michael Schumacher vibe of when I started watching Formula One. And then I kind of got to know him a little bit more, like, as a person, seeing who he is. And I really like his personality and his attitude. So I got a lot of, like, little Sebastian Vettel, you know, memorabilia at home. And, like, even on the podcast, I'll wear Ferrari headphones and stuff. So we usually kind of catch some heat for being those Ferrari fanboys, as they call us. But I mean, we're still pretty, like, down the middle and honest, and when we need to be. But I still do enjoy, like, a lot of the other drivers. Like, big fan of Max Verstappen as well. I think that guy's just an absolute superstar. And yeah, like, we definitely support the Canadian guys as well. Like Stroll, anytime he does really well. It's good to see, like, when he got the podium in Baku in 2017 was a nice moment. And yeah, Nicholas Latifi too, like, been following him pretty closely since last year in F2, now that he's in F1. So it's nice to we haven't had Canadians on the grid very often in Formula One. So it kind of boosts the popularity a little bit in the sport and gives us something to talk about.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, as I mentioned before, in Jensen in 2011, that was the race I fell in love with. So I automatically kind of steered myself to being a McLaren fan. Obviously, it was McLaren Mercedes back then, but I just stuck with McLaren in general, and was always a fan for them. And it still am now because of their connection with Sainz and Norris. I mean, how can't you love that dynamic duo? But a team that really grew on my heart the last couple of years is what was Force India, now Racing Point. Just one because, I mean, Lance Stroll racing for them, have to support the Canadians. But just the hospitality they showed us when we went down to Toronto to the car launch, to their team launch in general, and how well they treated us and in giving us all the access that we needed. It was just really nice to see that they support the Canadian media and are trying to grow the sport here in Canada as well. So soft spot for Racing Point just because of how nice they've been to us.
Yeah, awesome, definitely. And obviously it's nice to see, as I say, support on the Canadian side. Yeah, awesome. I mean, we all have a good backstory, and obviously, yeah, that was a good story getting into F1.
Yeah, some good variety of drivers there you like, and of course, you know, at least you're back in there, your local boys, obviously Latifi and Lance Stroll. Just moving away just slightly from the world of Formula One into the world of YouTube as such. Your YouTube channel that you all run together, the Backmarkers Show. How did that firstly come about? Like, whose idea was it to start a YouTube channel? Like, was it someone's bright idea, then, like, you know, kind of got everyone in it together, or was it like a group decision where, like, one went, oh, you know what, I'll start a YouTube channel. Oh, you know what, let's call it this. Oh, you know what, I've got this idea. Like, what's the story behind the channel, and like who kind of started the idea in the first place?
Yeah, so I think it was back toward the end of 2017 or somewhere around that time. I think I had texted Tyler about possibly starting like a YouTube podcast or a Formula One podcast. And then over the next couple of months, I think we kind of got together and just kind of hashed out some ideas of what we could do and different things like that. And then originally we were going to bring Shaker on just as, like a technical setup guy, because he's really good with all the technical stuff. And I guess to give a little bit of a background, we all went to school together. We took television broadcasting, so it's kind of like our area and our business of being on air and doing these kinds of things. So we graduated and we were kind of all like went our separate ways doing different jobs. But one thing we really enjoyed in college was just creating our own content. Like we would do our own sports shows and different things like that, and we really enjoyed having that freedom. So we wanted to continue doing stuff like that. So I came to Tyler with that idea, and then it just snowballed from there to bring in Shaker. And then, thankfully, like Shaker ended up being kind of a third co-host for us, because he just started chiming in on our episodes, and it was like really fun and entertaining, and he's become really knowledgeable as well. So it just kind of started from there, and then it grew and grew, and yeah, here we are.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously with there being like 3 years obviously on the channel and stuff, I'd imagine, are there quite a few like disagreements when it comes to maybe making a certain idea or maybe a certain opinion? Like, have you had any like big, like really big disagreements? Not necessarily like on camera or on the microphone, like before you record, like, oh, we're not doing this or we're not doing that. Have you got any stories about that?
I think we've been pretty good with our behind the scenes stuff. I mean, all three of us really think a lot alike, which helps the group in terms of trying to figure out different ideas and stuff. And, if someone comes up with an idea, if it's not good, we'll make sure we'll let each other know. But for the most part, I mean, we don't come up with ideas that each other don't like because we just know each other so well, which is the beautiful thing about our relationship, is that we can trust each other with good ideas, and a lot of that has to do with the trust in each other. I think the only real big blow up we had was on camera, and that's because back in Brazil, I thought, and I still think to this day, that the Ocon Verstappen incident was Verstappen's fault.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, Tyler, I'm hanging up.
I think the other big thing for us is that we kind of all know what we're really strong in when it comes to a lot of the media-related stuff, so we can leave responsibilities to each other, and we can trust each other with those responsibilities to, kind of carry it through. And I think, like we mentioned earlier, that trust kind of developed from college. So, just working together for so long, you kind of, you hashed out all the problems that you kind of had beforehand,
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to have like big trust in a group like that as well. So yeah, pretty good story. The name Backmarkers, the Backmarkers F1 Show, like, what's the story behind that name? Was it like maybe something that you've had? I don't know, like you might just heard it or like somewhere and just thought, that would be a good name for a channel, or did somebody did someone just come up with it on the spot, just like, okay, we need a name for the channel, okay, let's call it this? Or have you had other names and you just changed it in the past? What's the story behind the name?
I think it was me and Tyler, once we kind of decided that we were going to do the channel, and then toward like almost the start of the 2018 season, we were trying to figure out a name. And I think we had a bunch of names on the list. I can't even remember, honestly, at the time what other names that we had, but we just decided on Backmarkers F1 Show. But yeah, I don't know, Tyler, if you remember any of the other names that we floated around at that time, but for whatever reason, we just settled on this one. I wish there was like a better story behind it, but...
I don't remember the names that we were deciding on, but I do remember why we chose Backmarkers F1 Show. And the reason was because we were starting out a new YouTube channel, and we knew we'd be quite crap at it to start off. So we kind of compared ourselves to the Backmarkers in real life, and thought, well, maybe we'll just call our podcast the Backmarkers F1 Show. I mean, no one would really expect us to do much. So it's kind of it's stuck on since then. It's been a catchy name, and we like it, and that's how it was more of a laugh, and this is kind of a funny name rather than a serious, like, oh, let's try to think of a good name. It was more something that we laughed about and said, let's go with it.
It's a clever name.
It was just instant, yeah.
It's a clever name, definitely. And then, I just want to jump on one last thing on this. I just want to jump on one thing that you said, which is that you knew each other from school. because obviously we've talked about this before with other guests who've had relationships growing up. So, I mean, just, tell us about what it was like to be at school with each other, and did you become friends then? And talk a little bit about, you knew each other from school, and how did your friendship go from there?
Yeah, I mean, we had quite an interesting program for television broadcasting. I mean, everything was kind of group related. You had to work in groups for everything that you did. And then me, Chris, Tyler, and a few of our other friends were really into sports. Was the one thing that we kind of went into a lot of our studio shows going into, that we want to focus more on the sports side of the show. And through that we started working on a lot of other projects. Chris and I did a couple of documentaries together, and all three of us worked together on a couple of documentaries and other films and stuff like that. And yeah.
So when you say school, is that like young age, or
no, like college?
It would have been
college.
So that was 2014 to 2016.
Right, so you all went to college together.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Right.
Yeah, we were
right. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, we were all in the same class, and we'd have to produce a TV show, a live TV show, an hour-long TV show every week. And it kind of came to the latter parts of our last year on who was really good at what. And I mean, Shaker's phenomenal with technology and really leads there. Chris is a very good director and coming up with ideas and coming up with being the production side and being very good at that. And for myself in school, I was the on-air talent crap at technology and just really trying to do all right on camera and reading a teleprompter. We all kind of, that's how we started coming about, where the three of us pieced it together on what our strengths are, and all three of us have grown in different ways that we really help each other well now, and it was all leading through college.
Yeah, definitely sounds good. So you obviously have a lot of technological background in college, and you're not shy behind the camera, so yeah, that's definitely awesome. I wish we had that. So moving on to the next question, which again is getting away from F1 and also getting away from YouTube. Obviously, you mentioned there when you were at college, you were all big sports fans, and you've mentioned there Manchester United and who was the Tottenham Hotspur fan? Was it you, Chris? I think
No, it was me.
Tyler. Oh, sorry. So Tottenham, Man U. Again, yeah. What are your favourite sports? I mean, do you like Canadian sports, like NHL, for example? What do you like watching on the TV? Obviously, when you can watch sport, when sport is on. And also what do you like playing? What did you play at college? And yeah, what are your hobbies outside of F1 and YouTube?
Yeah, like in addition to F1, like tennis for me was my most favorite sport. Like when I was a kid, I was huge into soccer as a kid, and then I kind of grew out of that and then moved on to tennis. So I played a lot competitive when I was in high school and a couple of years back, and then I became a coach. So when I'm not watching F1, I'm watching tennis. I'm a huge Roger Federer fan. I'm pretty much watching all the tournaments from the Grand Slams to the Masters 1000 events. So the tennis is one thing that I really enjoy, but I also love basketball too. So, I mean, you guys were talking sports just off air before, but when the Raptors won the NBA championship this past year, that was like, it was funny when you were mentioning that, you hope that Newcastle wins the league in your lifetime. It was sort of similar with the Raptors, because we always had such poor teams, and it just never seemed like we were ever going to win the championship. But to kind of see that in your lifetime was pretty special, and it was a really interesting atmosphere at that time. So it was nice to see them do that. But yeah, I still watch. I watch a lot of football as well when I can. American football as well as football in Europe as well. So anytime I get a chance to, I'll tune in and watch some sports, other racing events as well. So IndyCar, NASCAR, anything that's on. But I'd probably say that tennis and basketball would probably be my next two main sports that I play and that I watch.
So the Toronto Raptors, they're like your NBA team. What's your NFL team? You mentioned there, American football.
Yeah, my NFL team's the Buffalo Bills. So I used to live in Niagara Falls, which is like kind of right across sort of the bridge there from Buffalo. So it's very close. So we used to catch all of the Buffalo Bills games at that time. There's another example of a team that hasn't really done well in my lifetime, but they look like they're on the right track now. So I'm fingers crossed that in the next couple of years they'll be able to make a run, maybe even to the Super Bowl. So, I do enjoy a good football game every now and again. But for whatever reason, I just always had bad luck, like supporting bad teams. So,
well, I mean, you did well last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, true.
And you also drafted a very good quarterback on the final day, Jake Fromm. So you never know. I mean, it might go well for Buffalo, but yeah, no. I mean, for example, the Raptors. I know that was an amazing season. That really a miracle thing. Obviously, you other guys, sports hobbies. Are you NHL fans, NBA fans, NFL fans?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I'm a Man United fan and just football fan in general. Like I watch Champions League. I try to catch a soccer game whenever I can, when it's on. But yeah, and then I was a huge Ottawa Senators fan, NHL hockey fan as a kid. I don't follow it as much anymore, probably because the Ottawa Senators kind of suck right now, but not just now, just the last couple of years or so. But yeah, I don't follow it as much anymore. And then I was also, growing up, I played a lot of soccer and basketball. When I got towards high school, I kind of played soccer a little bit more than I did basketball, kind of chose one over the other. But yeah, those are probably the three sports I watch most often. And I grew up as a kid, I played a lot of tennis with my dad, actually. But never really played it past high school.
Yeah. And Tyler?
Yeah, for me, growing up, I played hockey was my main sport, and American football. There's a Canadian version that we play. If you really want to get into specifics, that's different from the American game a little bit. And lacrosse. I'm not sure if you guys ever heard of lacrosse. It's a very so that's what I played as a kid. But watching now, I mean, I became a massive footy fan. As you mentioned, a big Tottenham fan. I work for what was the local team here in Ottawa. They have folded, and we have gotten a new team. So we'll see how that turns out. But I'll watch any sport that's on TV. Honestly, I have lots of passions for any sport. I mean, football, soccer, or I'll say soccer to keep the differentiate. I may get roasted for that. No, football, soccer, hockey are my massive sports, and obviously Formula One, since I am on a podcast with that. I mean, I have a big soccer jersey collection here at home with a bunch of different teams that I've seen. I've gone on 2 massive trips, one to England and one to Spain. So it was, I'm hoping to do many more in the future and have a few months long trip down to go watch footy all over Europe. That's one of my dream vacations. I love the passion for it, and hopefully I can time it out right and I can catch some F1 races while I'm there.
Definitely, that sounds awesome. Have you been to the new White Hart Lane as well, or I mean, also what teams did you go to in England?
We did a big trip when we went to England. I saw the original White Hart Lane in its final year. We saw a 1-1 draw to Leicester. It was the only game we drew that season at home, so that was great. And the only goal we scored was Vincent Janssen on a penalty. So I mean, I didn't really see anything too spectacular, which was great. But then we saw a Champions League game versus Bayer Leverkusen at Wembley. And that might have been the worst I've ever seen Tottenham play. We lost 2-0, and it was just embarrassing. Yeah. But we went to Loftus Road to go see QPR play. We went to Brentford. We went to Charlton, a little team that we love now and I support now. They're in the 7th Division, Kingstonian FC in South London. Yeah, I love the K's over there, and I don't know if I'm missing. I'm sure I'm missing a couple games. But in general, it was a lot. And our Spain trip was fantastic. I went with a buddy. We went and saw four La Liga games in 4 different days in 4 different cities. And then chilled the other rest of the week and a half. But yeah, that was fantastic. We started in Sevilla, went up to Cordoba, went over to Malaga. They're something else right now, and then ended in Granada in a rainstorm. It was just great to see the passion down there.
That sounds awesome. And also, finally, just on sports, you all mentioned that you played sports in college. Did you have a main sport that you played in college?
Yeah, for me it was definitely still tennis. Like while I was in high school, I was trying to get some scholarships to play at like Division II schools in the United States. And like I went down and visited a couple schools, but there was never anything, serious for like a big scholarship or anything. Like for tennis, it's pretty, they don't give out a whole lot of scholarships and stuff. But pretty much just after that, it was just playing for fun and exercising and things like that, getting into that. But another sport too, I was just when Tyler was talking about there that I've really gotten into the last couple of years has been like combat sports like UFC and boxing. So I've been watching a lot of that too, in addition to all the other sports as well. So yeah, like when times are normal, my calendar's pretty full of sports to watch.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I played soccer throughout high school, and then pretty much after that, it was like Chris said, it was just for leisure and for exercise. A lot of basketball. Used to play just American football, just touch football with my friends here and there. But yeah, that's pretty much been it.
Yeah, for me, I played pretty high level in terms of football and lacrosse throughout my high school time, and hockey was more playing with friends in kind of not a lower division, but enough where I could play with friends and not cost me a fortune. But I like to hit things very hard, and I like to get hit. So I had too many concussions to play in college, so I had to retire and hang everything up after grade 12 and before I went to college. So I've kind of been on the back burners and living as a fan now.
That sounds great, guys.
Yeah, some really good stories. Hopefully you can fulfill your dream of traveling around Europe, Tyler. I think it was.
Yeah, no, that'd be fantastic.
Awesome.
I mean, I'll let you guys know if I end up in Newcastle. You guys will have to treat me to
Oh,
a game.
absolutely, absolutely.
I'll buy the rounds at the pub if you got the tickets.
Well, I mean, to be honest, if you came over to
no
London, then we would happily go to a game with you in London if you came over. That's us saying.
Are you guys in London?
Sorry,
are you guys in London or Newcastle?
But we would come down to London. I mean.
Oh,
yeah,
I'll go up and down England. I want to see. I've only done London, so I need to go up and down. So we'll do both. How about that?
Beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. We'll meet you in London, and we'll show you the best.
I'll get you guys some tickets to Tottenham.
Yeah, to the new the new White Hart Lane, I guess, just to see it.
You have to pay me first.
Just sit on your hands the whole game. You'll be fine.
Yeah, like the score.
Depends who it's against, but could be a worse team in London.
Just avoid Sunderland at all cost. All right, just avoid Sunderland. Don't go there if you're coming on a tour of England. Just avoid that city altogether. Trust me.
But Sunderland Till I Die is such a fantastic show. You get to see a garbage fire happen in front of your eyes. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to watch. It's interesting to watch. And also when Jordan said that, I mean, the Stadium of Light and Sunderland fans, no, but Sunderland as a place is not too bad. Just before we get like hate mail. But like
I mean, us at North East, we are very passionate about our football, like really passionate. Like Sunderland fans, Newcastle fans, Middlesbrough fans, and and even like to the lower leagues, very passionate about our football. And again, with Sunderland fans, and obviously on Sunderland Till I Die, I've always said it's a good insight to see how a football club is run, similar to F1 Drive to Survive. Like we kind of avoid the dramatic nature of like when Max was closing down Lewis in Monaco, like the dramatic camera, the dramatic turn, the dramatic music. Oh, is he going to catch him? And obviously we're sitting there just going, no, he doesn't catch him. We know that, but obviously that's for like the newer fans. Yet we want to see behind the scenes actions, what's going on when the races aren't happening. And the same with Sunderland as well. It's
when people watch and think, do Sunderland actually get relegated to League? No. Do Sunderland win at Wembley and come back with the Championship? Am I sitting there going, no?
like looking at them going, you think you're going to get promoted? You're not.
I've got an interesting football stat for you guys.
Go ahead.
You can, just to pique your interest. I was looking around the other day, and I'm going to tweet this out on my account, my personal account later. But in 2007, I believe it was, Bolton was playing in the Premiership. And Salford was in the 9th division. If things stand as of this year, next season they'll be playing in Div 4 together, which is wild.
Wow.
Only 13 years later, how much of a progression from one team and how much of a fall from the other.
Oh yeah, there's like quite a few teams. I think like think Stevenage and AFC Wimbledon, they're like a couple of teams who are playing against the likes of Portsmouth and of course Sunderland.
Yeah.
And yet you again, like you say, about 10 years ago, Sunderland were battling for European positions, and Stevenage and everyone were like in the lower leagues of the football league, and then all of a sudden they're in the same league. It's mad. It is crazy to see how far Bolton have fallen, because I know Bolton is like a big European team when I was growing up, compared to obviously where they are now, and obviously Salford as well. They're doing bits at the moment. Just quickly come back into back into YouTube as such. You guys was talking strongly about one another, about trust and about how good at different things you are, like hosting or technical stuff or directing as well. It's really good to hear that you got some really good things to say about one another. What happens? So how would a typical episode of yours go about? Like when you're obviously at the moment it'll be a lot different because there's no racing at the moment. But like on a race weekend, what would just one show? What would happen? Like would there be a lot of planning going into it? And who would do what and what the rules would be? So just maybe tell a few people how a typical episode of yours would fold from from the very beginning to the very end.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for us, like the main thing, and it kind of goes back to how we were at college, which is, we just we did a lot of things live and kind of flying by the seat of your pants, as they say, and just doing things as they come. So the main thing for us is we try not to plan too many things out. So, for example, if we're doing a podcast recapping one of the races, that's just a lot of it's just reactionary. So we've got a lot of opinions and thoughts on what happened in the race. And we actually don't even try to talk too much before the episode because we want to save it all for when it comes out on air so it's authentic. And, like Tyler mentioned before, his reaction to the Ocon Verstappen incident, like we wouldn't want to talk too much about that beforehand because then we won't be as surprised by his opinion or animated or things like that. So certain episodes, like if we were doing a preview of a race, we'll do some research in terms of the track layout and tire allocation, things like that, just so that we're ready. Because one of the more challenging things that you find is that there's a lot of smart fans out there as well, and they know when you're trying to pull a fast one over them. So yeah, too many. Yeah. Some are smarter than they think, and most of them live in the comments section. But we can get to that later. But so we really just try and be as authentic as possible. So most of the time we'll just get together. We'll chat for about 10 to 15 minutes, maybe not even about F1, about some other things. Do our mic tests, and then we're on the air, and then whatever happens.
Yeah, I mean, if it is, if it is something major that happened in the race, we'll mention it. And like that whole Ocon and Verstappen incident, it was, I think Tyler was like, I think Verstappen was on the wrong. And I think we just stopped it right there. We're like, okay, we're going to save this for the show then. Because we knew each of our points of views going into it. We just don't know. We just want to hear the explanation in the show. And I think that's what's so authentic about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, we'll come up with, like I say, for a post-race show, with 6 or 7 bullet points to hit just to keep us on track. But, I mean, for the most part, we want to have that debate live. And, as Chris said, flying by the seat of our pants, I find that the most authentic reactions will come out live and genuine. You don't want to script too much because then you just sound like a robot. You don't get as many, as much passion out as you would just talking, having a general conversation. That's what a lot of our podcast is just us talking about our feelings and about the race. And we feel that that's the most interesting. If you're listening to an F1 podcast, we're no technological experts in terms of what downforce Red Bull was running better than Ferrari. We're not in engineering. We won't tell you anything about that. We'll give you what we think about it. It's probably completely wrong, but we want to give them our personal opinion, and I think that's what makes our podcast nice to listen to. Just because you get to relive it as a fan and bring your opinions into our conversations, and we try to let the fans have a voice as well. And whatever they mention down below, we'll make sure that we add that into our next episode if it's something interesting for us to debate about or talk about.
Yeah, it's always good, like, getting the fans involved as well, like comment sections, or maybe giving video ideas or opinions for the next episode. It's awesome. It's also good as well that that you're just talking about the race itself, or talking about something like a big thing that's happened. Because I've said before in podcasts and stuff, and to other people, there's not many like you yourself. You might not know many Formula One fans just as passionate as you. You might know the casual one who's like, oh, I know Hamilton and Vettel, but I don't know who. Latifi is, I don't know who Russell is, or Charles, or whoever, like the younger drivers. So it's always good to maybe go onto YouTube and listen to somebody like yourselves who's just like, yeah, like, these guys are, passionate, these guys enjoy what I enjoy, and just I want to get involved with these guys, almost like you're having a conversation with your friends at the same time, and sometimes you'll listen to it and go, oh, I was thinking the exact same thing, like how weird is that? And then I'll jump in the comment section and be like, oh, this is amazing, and then you get some like arseholes that are just like, oh, you're wrong, and like, get out, mate, get in the bin. So yeah, and obviously I'd imagine you're itching as well. Like you said, you don't want to discuss much about like I said, topic before the record. Otherwise, you'll just drain out all the excitement and all the passion as well. You might even miss out a few points as well. So I'd imagine that you'd be itching to get on to record if like a big race had happened, like a Germany 2019 where there's lots of action. You're like, oh, there's lots of opinions, and like let's quickly just record quick.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's like you said, if it's something really important to happen in the race, I think we've tried to do it within 24 to 36 hours. But like the beginning of the season last year, the first 5 or 6 races weren't super interesting. So some of that it didn't have to be done right away. We could put it off a little bit and hold off on that podcast. So
yeah, pretty cool. And a question as well, I just want to ask you is, right, whose idea was it, or how did you get Nicholas Latifi on your show?
That's all Chris Cato. That's Chris.
That is cool.
That's all Chris. He's the genius on that one. So full marks to him.
How did that? How? Oh wow! How did that all come about then?
Yeah, I don't know if we should reveal our secret. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, it was just I don't remember. I think maybe it was Tyler. We had when we first started had gotten a media login account with Williams. So I did some digging, and I ended up finding one of the press officers' email, and I sent her an email, just inquiring about a possibility about interviewing him, and I didn't get my hopes up, because why the hell would they want to talk to us? I think that maybe we had hit 1,000 subscribers by that time a couple months ago. I think we were already there, but anyway, it's still relatively small when you compare to some of these other media outlets. And yeah, she emailed back to us, and it was just like, nah, no problem. Like, this is his schedule. Like, he's not back in the factory until like a month from now. Like, we can do it then. And I was like, yeah, sure. like any time is okay with us. So they were great. Williams was very, very gracious towards us. They gave us, we talked to him for about 25 minutes or so, because that's the amount of time that she gave us, but we probably could have talked to him a little bit longer. I became an even bigger Nicholas Latifi fan after that. Like being honest, Lance Stroll is not really somebody that I would like to interview, like high on my list, just because he doesn't seem like the best interview out there. Maybe because he's camera shy, I'm not sure, but Tyler can talk to it as well, because me and him did the interview. Like, it was like talking to you guys right now. It was very relaxed, just like you're talking to a buddy, and it was really cool. Like, hearing him talk about the technical side of things was very, very interesting.
Yeah, it was unbelievable just how easy to talk to he was, and how nice of a person he was, and as Chris mentioned, became kind of bigger Latifi fans just because of how good of a guy he was. You can see it if you watch some of his Twitch streams now. People are starting to understand kind of the how good of a guy he is, and he's just very funny to be around. And we hit it off right away in terms of our interview, and I have to thank him for being so good, and thank Williams for letting us have that opportunity. And that was our second big interview, I guess, Chris, with F1 personalities. We had David Croft on our show for a small interview back during the Racing Point launch. He was standing there talking, and we said, well, you know what? Let's see if we can talk to David. And just what a what a nice man to take his stop out of his day, take his time, and spend 10 minutes or so talking to us about Racing Point, F1 in Canada, and everything like that. And I mean, that was fantastic just to have someone with credibility on our show to really hone in on the fact that we somewhat know what we're talking about, and he was agreeing with us as well. And he was fantastic to interview, and such a nice guy to take his time out, and greatly appreciate that interview as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think there's probably a few people out there who would be ignorant and be like, "Oh, I'm not talking to these guys" or whatever. So I think that's pretty awesome. I remember seeing like you uploaded a video about Latifi, and I just thought it was a topic about him. I thought you guys were talking about him, and then like I think it was Twitter. I think it was I don't know. I think it was like a day later I was on Twitter, and then like I think people were like retweeting it, and I just seen it, and I was like, "Hang on a minute, they've spoken to him." Wow, that is awesome. So. Obviously, I think this is after you'd said you would come on the show, so I was like, I need to ask these guys how this is possible. Like, how did they do that? That's incredible.
I think it's like, it's important to, and we learned this too. Like, I think Tyler and myself learned this when trying to interview people and stuff. That to not be shy and just go for it. Like the worst thing that they'll tell you is no. And like during this lockdown, we've tried to talk to current drivers, former drivers, and stuff. And we've reached out to a couple people. They've politely declined us, and that's all right. We understand we're not going to get everybody, but at the least we can try and talk to some personalities around F1, and if we get lucky and we get a driver, or if we get a journalist or other YouTubers as well. So yeah, I guess you just kind of give it a shot and see what happens, and then sometimes you get lucky. So we got lucky in this case.
Yeah, I think working in the media industry here in Ottawa, and myself personally having to do a lot of interviews and reach out to people and just to get the stories that you want, or to learn more about a person. I mean, every person has their story that we want to bring out, and how they got to F1, what they want to bring to the table. In Latifi's case, to F1 this season, how people can get to know them on a level that's not F1, because a lot of big fans, and no matter what sport, all they want to ask people is about the sport, all about the sport, and people have bigger stories that F1 of course is their life, but or football or soccer or whatever is their life, but they have a personality outside of that as well. So it's we want to bring that to normal F1 fans and diehard F1 fans who just want to know a little bit more about drivers or personalities or other YouTubers, like what you guys are doing here with us outside of the sport. And it's a good time to talk and get people's stories.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think that's a pretty awesome story. Yeah, good one.
Yeah, it definitely is. So I asked this question to a certain New Zealander that we had on last time, but I need to ask you guys, because from us, from what we're sitting, we don't know many Canadian YouTubers apart from yourselves. So, are you the face, or do you want to be the face of Canadian Formula One YouTube? Do you want to be the channel that's recognised in Canada as like the go-to Formula One channel?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say absolutely yes. And to be honest with you, I don't know any other Canadian F1 YouTubers out there, and I could be mistaken. There might be some out there that are around, but I haven't heard of any. And certainly, like our major sports networks here, they don't put too much coverage on Formula One. We have one major broadcaster that airs the races, just like Sky Sports does, for example, but they don't do a whole lot of coverage on it in your weekly Sports Center type shows. So yeah, I think that if we can be the number one source out there, then that would be great. But it's funny you mention it, though, because the majority of our viewers aren't even from Canada. They're from Holland. Like 40 some odd percent of our viewers are from Holland. Like all of our most viewed videos are because of Max Verstappen. So I'd love to actually tap more into the Canadian F1 fans, because I know that there are quite a few out there, but maybe they just haven't discovered us or whatever it is. But yeah, hopefully we can eventually get to that point where we're the sort of the lead channel in Canada. I mean, we have a lot less competition than, for example, you guys over there in the UK, just because it's so much more popular. So for us, there's sort of less Canadian F1 YouTubers out there. But yeah, I think that's a great question, and hopefully we can get there soon.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I mean, maybe we should start an NHL channel then, because NHL isn't very popular over here, I guess. But I don't know. Maybe you can be our correspondent. So, so yes,
I'd give it a listen.
so the face of Canada. Of course, that's an ambition. But what else do you have in line for an ambition? Kind of maybe an ambition that you are working towards, e.g. a job or a final goal. And then what's kind of the outlandish views, you know, for example, like, as I said then, yeah, you know, the main channel in Canada. What's your goals, your ambitions, both for Formula One and for like your lives and your careers? And maybe they can mix in, because, again, we've spoken to people who they've brought their... I mean, they might have a journalism link. For example, with you guys, you have, of course, television like you did at college and YouTube. Is it just a way of kind of gluing them together even more? And maybe your two ambitions could turn into one. So what's your view? What's your ambitions for both YouTube and the Backmarkers Show, and obviously yourselves going forward in life?
Yeah, for me personally, just kind of getting the channel to be as popular as possible. So not like a specific number, you know, 50,000 subscribers or whatever, but it could even be just 5,000 subscribers, but to have like a really good fan base, just because we, like you guys were mentioning before, we really do enjoy interacting with fans, and we really encourage it a lot too. So just to have like a really, you know, stable, popular fan base, for us, it's just really like we have fun in doing all the podcasts and the different shows and things like that. But at the same time, if we can make a living off of it, then why not pursue that avenue as well? So for me personally, I think the ultimate goal would one day to be able to work with Formula One management on the broadcast side. Obviously, being in front of the camera would be, you know, a dream to do what David Croft is doing, commentating on the races, things like that. But even if it's just working behind the scenes, whether it's doing some editing or doing some camera work, and then you could always do these podcasts on the side just for fun. And if you're earning a little bit of money on it and can make a living from that. So the broadcasting world is kind of changing a lot, and there's not a whole lot of jobs left for especially new up-and-comers like myself, Tyler, and Shaker. So you kind of have to get a little bit creative and sort of create your own avenue, and that's sort of where YouTube comes along now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me personally, like, you know, similar to Chris in terms of for this channel, you know, I just hope, you know, to get it to the best as possible, and not a specific number or anything, but yeah, you just to get it as best as we can. And then in terms of my personal stuff, I'm really into, you know, like these guys mentioned, the whole technical side of things, and I'm also a lot into videography. What I really want to do is basically create a lot of short films or films in general, to have those overlap to for future stories on F1 related stuff would be great. To have them both combined, and to do the podcast on the side still would also be great. But yeah, that just to kind of have them both mix up together and be more of a director of photography for F1 related stuff would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think for this channel.
Yeah, I mean, I think for this channel, like, I mean, yeah, it'd be amazing to grow it as much as we can and as big as we can, and that's a goal for any YouTuber. But the most important part is to make sure that you're entertaining the fans, and that the fans are enjoying what you're putting out, and you give them, you know, the best content that you can. And if, you know, even if it's if we can bring joy to, you know, let's say on average, you know, 700, 800, 900 people view our podcast. If we can bring joy and, you know, a slice away from reality for them for that hour that we talk, I mean, that's all we're looking to do, because, you know, we know that life is, you never know what could happen, and to have that little, just to serenade away and focus on something else, that's what we're really looking to bring from the podcast. And hopefully one day we can get some media rights and go to different F1 events and be behind the scenes and work away getting some interviews with important personnel. And that, you know, that'd be a huge goal for us if we can get some media passes to get into F1 events. And for me personally, like the other guys said, working in sports, being a commentator, I mean, that's my personal goal to be. I mean, I already do work in sports as a commentator, but not at the international level like F1 or you know, calling footy over on your end of the pond. But yeah, that'd be a goal for me one day, and hopefully all our dreams come true.
So if it wasn't Formula One, I mean, firstly, you guys obviously amazing views, amazing ambitions. If you were commentating and if you were working with a sport, but it wasn't Formula One, because again, people like David Croft, Ted Kravitz, they've started in different sport and then transitioned over. Of course, Ted longer than David, but David's been doing things like darts and other sports. So if you got the opportunity to work with another sport, Canadian or possibly European, that wasn't Formula One, but with the hopes of course, transitioning to F1, what sport would you pick to, as I say, become a commentator in front or behind the camera?
Yeah, it would be tennis for me, definitely. Going back a couple minutes ago, talking about tennis, like I know way more about tennis than I would Formula One, for example, in order to give a technical analysis and things like that. So traveling the world on the ATP tour would be quite remarkable as well. In addition, for example, if you're doing Formula One as well, being able to travel the world, see different races. The ATP tour has a similar schedule, kind of going to 5, 6, 7 different continents all over the world. So being able to do that, commentating on tennis matches would be pretty incredible as well. So I'd be happy with either or.
Yeah.
For me, it would definitely be football for either the Premier League or even for the MLS here, just to be able to travel and do a lot of those interviews slash. Like I said, the short films that they do, the features that they do for the networks would be kind of what I would want to do.
Yeah, for me, I
am kind of somewhat living that dream, being a commentator with my local footy team, Ottawa Fury FC. Of course, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, they have since folded, unfortunately, but we do have a new team coming up, Atletico Ottawa, who's half owned by Atletico Madrid. So yeah, very interesting there, but. Wow. A goal for me, it would be working in footy over where you guys are in England, or even honestly anywhere in Europe. And I know it's hard for a Canadian guy to break into the industry over in England, because North American people don't know anything about the game, and all we know is how to tackle and how to play hockey in Canada. All we know is hockey, where there's a lot of knowledge in the game over here in North America, especially here in Canada, where it's growing so much, month by month, year by year here in Canada. So hopefully it would be amazing to work over in Europe with soccer, commentating and doing in front of the camera stuff. That's my goal.
Yeah, definitely sounds good. And of course, last thing, I mean, you have had Nicholas Latifi on, amazing interview. And again, we don't want to give too many secrets away, but you never know, they might be listening and they might want to join in. If you could have another guest on, it could be a driver or a team personnel or retired or active that you could interview, just one pick. You can only pick one. Who would you choose? Just one each, let's say. So you've had Latifi, you've had Croft. Who would you have next?
Oh, that's a really tough question to answer. I would probably have to go with Mark Webber. I read his book a few years ago, and he tells some really interesting stories, and I think that he's got a great personality. Like, I just saw on F1 Twitter, they posted a couple of days ago his team radio in Brazil in 2012 when they told him to basically let Vettel by, but they used that coded message of multi 12, and he's like, well, what switches that? What switches that? I mean, obviously he's joking. He just wants it to publicly be known that they wanted team orders. So I think talking to Mark would be really interesting, because I think he's a bit of an underrated driver. I think he was really, really incredibly skilled driver, and I think that his personality is just really cool. So just being able to talk to him about those Red Bull days and what it was like with Vettel after all the multi-21 stuff and that whole the heated battles that they would have, I think that would probably be my number one.
Good choice. Guys, have you got another opinion? Do you agree with Mark, or who would you choose?
It's a
it's a tough one. I'm still thinking about it.
Question.
I'll
go here then.
It's hard.
It's hard because we want to interview guys in IndyCar, guys in NASCAR, to bring other racing perspectives to the chat, just so F1 fans can learn about the other racing series and how talented they are in different senses. But to pick one person, I think I'd have to go with Daniel Ricciardo.
Okay. Two Australians.
I think he'd be a lot of fun to talk to, and it wouldn't be an in-depth, like serious conversation. We'd have a lot of fun with it, and would be joking around a lot. He seems like a cool cat to talk to. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was also thinking Daniel Ricciardo, but I'm gonna go with Lando Norris. Just in terms of the same thing, I think he's a fun personality. A young F1 driver coming into Formula One. Sorry. Just to get his more, point of the view of how his last season went, because Drive to Survive kind of shafted him in that term. But yeah, I think I would go with Lando Norris. I understand why he has so many technical difficulties.
Yeah. Awesome choices,
Get a better
guys.
internet provider is what I think. Well, the next part I was going to ask you guys is your top 5 drivers and why. But I think we've spoken a lot about drivers in today's podcast. So I'm going to change the question, and I'm going to change it to maybe like your favorite F1 memories. Maybe like, do you have like a certain memory that stands out to you that's maybe well known? For example, obviously the Jensen Button pass on Vettel in 2011, which everyone will talk about, will say, and of course you can say it, of course. But maybe there's one that's obscure that's favourite to you personally. So yeah, like what would your favorite, like what would your most memorable F1 moment be, and why?
I guess one that's recent for me, and it's a bit of a personal one, was the 2018 Canadian Grand Prix when Vettel won. Just personally, because at the track in Montreal, at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, they let the fans run onto the track just like in many of the other tracks around the world. And I sprinted pretty much down the back straight, almost a kilometer to get to where the podium was. And I just got to the end of the Italian anthem, so to be able to like experience that with the packed crowd and to hear the Italian anthem after seeing it so many times on TV, of course with Michael when I was a kid, and to finally get to experience it in person was really, really cool. So that I'd probably say would personally be my favorite F1 memory, just because I experienced it. Otherwise, I'd probably have to think about it, just because I've watched so many races and throughout the years that it would take me a little while to figure it, but that's a personal one for me.
For me, it was actually quite recent. Since recently getting into F1, I went to my first Canadian Grand Prix last year. Chris was already there, and I met up with him there. So just to experience a Grand Prix for the first time, the amount of people, just to walk around the track afterwards. And even before that, like the year before that, Chris and I went down to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and we filmed around the track, and I got to drive it with my little Volkswagen Golf. So I think that's kind of a memory for me as well, just to drive around the track on my own, just recording throughout the entire thing. So yeah.
And getting hounded by security
guards.
Yeah, being told we're not allowed to film in a public space, that was quite interesting.
For me, obviously I'm going to mention the 2011 race that really brought my love for F1 back with Jensen. But I think my favorite F1 memory is off track, and that's the experience that I had at Racing Point's car launch, and being able to be that close to an F1 car. We were. We could touch it if we wanted to. That's how close we were. to see how the whole aspect of the car up in close in person like that, and
they're a lot bigger. They're a lot bigger in real life, aren't they? When you see them in person, you're like, wow, this is huge.
They're massive. They are massive. No wonder the turning radius sucks on those things, because they're huge. They take up a full lane on normal street roads. And the wing you think the wing's so small, the wing is massive. The front wing I'm talking about is massive. But to see that up close in person, it kind of have an inkling on what it's like to be an F1 driver for 2-3 hours, just having all the personnel around you, being able to talk to people, being able to be up with the car that close. That was pretty cool for me, and I think that's my greatest moment, and mine comes off the track.
Yeah, well, they were great. Great things, guys, of course, live and in Canada. I mean, what more could you ask for? Not just sitting and watching the telly. As I say, great, absolutely amazing. So obviously, who you mentioned there, the 2019 race. Two of you were at that race. So obviously with Sebastian Vettel, time penalty, lost first place, cutting the corner. I mean, we all saw like Lewis Hamilton getting booed on the podium and the bad stigma that it had, that race. But being at the race and seeing that unfold, and obviously the aftermath, what was it like being at that race? I mean, could you tell that it was people disliked that decision, or was it just a racing, or did it even make the experience more juicy because not only had you been to a race, but something interesting had happened and you knew that people would talk about it for a long time? What was it like?
So let's just fill in the blanks for Montreal here. Montreal is a very Italian city. A lot. So there is a lot of Ferrari red throughout the entire city when you go. So all the boos and stuff you heard were all live, all really loud. So yeah, you can feel the feeling on the circuit that everybody was quite upset with the decision. Even just a lot of the people running up to the track and such were, it was quite disappointing.
Yeah. It's interesting when you're there because obviously when you're sitting and watching at home, you get a lot more information as to what's going on. And we usually leave a little bit early so that we can get ourselves in position to be able to sprint to the podium. So we had left just after Vettel had gone off. And then as we're walking, we see it pop up on one of the big screens that he gets a 5-second time penalty. So it was just like incredibly disappointing because, I mean, I would have loved to see obviously another Ferrari win there. But, we talked about in our podcast after how we didn't think that it was a fair penalty and that you shouldn't have gotten the 5 seconds. So there was kind of some disappointment, but we didn't really see any of all that stuff like Vettel moving the number 1 and the 2 sign. Like I had no idea any of that happened until I got home and I checked it on Twitter. I wish I would have seen that in person because that was awesome. But I guess at the very least it was like this memorable moment that happened and that you were there and you experienced it. So, but I do remember on Saturday when Vettel got pole, like our grandstand exploded. So yeah, Shaker's absolutely right. There's a huge Ferrari fans that come to the race in Montreal.
Yeah, definitely. It sounded absolutely amazing. Canada's actually had a lot of thrilling things happen. Of course, 2017, Lewis Hamilton matches Ayrton Senna's pole position record, 65, I believe. Obviously, 2018, Sebastian Vettel wins. His big win for him, of course, in his championship fight. I think he was leading at that point. And obviously 2019. But the big one, and what should have won the race of the decade, a few months ago F1 did a video, it didn't win. People were aggravated. I was. Longest race of all time. And one of you guys was there. Chris, I believe, you were the one that was at the race, wasn't it? Was that right?
No, I actually wasn't at that one. I wish I was at that race. I think I remember watching that on TV though, just because it took forever.
Yeah. But nevertheless, though, I mean, it was obviously a race in your hometown. What was it like watching it on the telly? And also, I mean, as I say, not too far away from Canada, from Montreal. What was the atmosphere like after that? I mean, did people know it was a historical event? Once it had happened, or during the race, did people on the telly know that this was going to be a race to be remembered for all ages? And also as well, Jenson Button, you mentioned you mentioned there about liking Jenson Button when you were getting into Formula One. Did you know that this was going to be a special race for him? And of course the main one, did you think that he was going to go from last to first to last to first in about 50 pit stops and win that race against Sebastian?
Yeah,
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I don't think anybody really expected. I guess maybe at the time it's hard to know exactly how the race is going to go down. Like, we thought like Germany 2019 was going to be a classic, so we're going to see maybe in 5-10 years how people are going to review that race. But it certainly ended up being extremely special just because I don't really think we've had a race like that since, that's had so many safety cars and that's been so long. And yeah, like Montreal always provides like really tricky conditions. Like it's either like really cold or it's really hot and it's pouring rain. So yeah, it was pretty interesting at the time just watching it, and you just had no idea who was going to come out on top.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people don't know about Montreal is how tricky of a track it really is. Like, and that's why it provides such great racing all the time. and has to be, I think, one of the more interesting tracks to drive if you're a driver, because it's so high speed, but it's very tight, and any mistake, you're off into the wall, kind of like not a full street circuit. It is its own circuit, but it's very dusty in Montreal. Like a lot of leaves, and it's a lot of debris goes on the track, so it's very slick conditions. But I mean, growing up, and as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, how that race really got me back into F1, and I became a Jenson Button fan. At the time, it was more like, man, this guy's sick. Like, he just came back. He crashed a couple times. He just 100 pit stops, and he still came back to win. I mean, this guy's amazing. And then you start following him a little bit more. But the thing is, in Canada is, we live in Ottawa. We're an hour and a half away from Montreal, and there's not a lot going on here because everything's centered in Montreal. That's where the real kind of hardcore fans are, I guess. That's where a lot of the popularity goes, because there's not much exposure outside of Montreal. If you're a race fan, I mean, we get a lot of NASCAR coverage here, but we don't get nearly a lot of F1. I remember watching the race, but the highlights lasted maybe 10, 15 seconds on your sports show, and that was it. So it's tough to grow a sport when you're doing something like that. But I think if you were an F1 fan, you realize that was a special race at the moment, and how much history it brought. In terms of it being one of the greatest races ever.
Good.
Got it.
Sounds good.
Spa.
Latifi.
Winter Olympics. Easy.
Verstappen.
Ketchup.
None of the auto centers would rather die. Awful question.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, say it again. Oh, yeah, Benotto for sure.
English.
Jacques. He's hilarious.
Oh, V8s all the way. Yeah.
Sorry, Williams or Racing Point.
– 2011.
Neither.
Yo. Pardon? No Halo.
Socks.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, socks. Because when you put your pants on, if you're putting jeans on, let's say, then you get that weird feeling on your
Yeah,
ankles.
but what if you're not putting on socks right away?
Or you could.
Well, you shouldn't be wearing jeans with.
Yeah, but what if you're
sandals.
just
That
hanging out
is
at
an
home,
awful
you know,
look.
and you decide to go out later? You're gonna put on socks.
Yeah,
Yes.
put on socks and put shorts on.
Or you could just solve the problem and not
But I'll
put
put my
pants
socks
on.
on first.
I mean, we're not talking
you
about
could not put
quarantine
pants on yours.
situation here, so
Yeah, then there's no pants at all.
yeah, I guess that's
I've-
true.
I've got a quick fire for you guys. I've got a quick fire for you guys here, and you guys can each respond. I'll throw it
All
right
right,
back
okay.
at you guys.
that the
Verstappen or Verstappen or Ocon? Whose fault was it?
Verstappen. Verstappen. Yeah, Verstappen's.
Ah, see, you guys agree with me then. Lovely,
Yeah.
lovely, lovely.
It's all Tyler's fault.
It's a big topic.
Well, I liked Force India because just the fact like it was just a hilarious team, and I like the livery. So that's really the reason why I liked Force India for a little bit. They weren't my favorites, but I did like the livery. And then yeah, the black, the 1 year they ran the black. Yeah,
2014, yeah.
yeah, I really like that livery. And then the pink is classic. I hope they don't get rid of it, but they are going to Aston Martin, right? So they probably will get rid of it, unfortunately. But the pink's phenomenal. But yeah, that's really why I liked Racing Point. It was just because of how nice they were. And I mean, now Williams, I mean, how nice they were with us. I mean, I'm a Williams fan now too because of what they've done for us.
Yeah, right. Racing Point / Force India, they've had some really good liveries over the years, and hopefully that'll continue on when Aston Martin come in the sport in 2021. So the final part of our interview brings us to, the segment that we all do with our guests. Every single one of them is the F1 Dream Team, where we ask you guys to pick, your ultimate F1 team, so you can pick anything you want that's ever existed in Formula 1, like any cars or anything. So you get to pick 2 drivers for your team, a car, any car that's appeared in Formula 1 from 1950 till present day, a team manager, team boss, team principal, and a team name. What would your team name be? What would your team be? So let's start with Chris. Chris, what would your ultimate F1 or your F1 dream team be?
So I would go. So the 2 drivers, I'd pick Mika Hakkinen and Kimi Räikkönen. And for the car, I'd go the MP44. I think that was the 1988 car, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And team principal, does it have to be an F1 team principal, current or former?
It can be anyone that's ever appeared. It can be one today or one that has been in Formula 1.
That's a good one. I'll probably go with Ross Brawn as team principal.
Mm-hmm. Good one.
And what was that it, or is there another part of that one?
And a
Team name. Let's go Team Bois.
Yeah. Team Bois.
I feel like I should back out of this one.
You can join my team.
All right, cool.
Okay, so you're leaving it to
Okay,
me
so
then?
you're leaving
Yeah,
it
I'm
to
gonna
me
leave
then?
it to you. I'll bow out of this one.
All right.
Right. No problem, Shaker.
So I for car, I'd go with the 2009 Braun 001, I think they called it. Livery and all. Just amazing. Drivers. That's tough. I think I go with Michael Schumacher as one, just because of what he meant to me as a kid. 2, I'll go Kimi Räikkönen because he's something special. For team principal, Günther Steiner. And for is team name next?
Team name, yeah.
Yeah. Controversial F1 team.
Controversial F1
There's
team.
just controversy everywhere with all those guys.
To be fair, that could be a very good name in Formula One. I think we need to set. I think all of us need to just put some money in somewhere and just set up a team called Controversial F1 Team and just bring in some controversial personnel like Briatore and Nelson Piquet Jr. and just bring out some really, or even like Verstappen and just say, Verstappen's the best drivers. Verstappen's better than Hamilton. Just watch the drama unfold and step back. Yeah,
We can put Jeremy Clarkson as our team boss.
Oh, that'd be great.
Oh, that's good.
perfect one. You guaranteed him with that.
Yeah. Yeah. First off, thanks for having us on. We really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, especially not being able to talk F1 with the races being canceled and everything. So we appreciate the work that you guys are doing too, bringing on other YouTubers as well. So it's nice that we can all work as a team together and kind of promote each other and help each other out. So that's great. In the meantime, we're just kind of still brainstorming ideas of what sort of things we can fill the time with. Of course, by the time this comes out, hopefully we'll have some news on when a race will happen or will not happen. We're trying to get some interviews with people in the F1 community, so some former drivers, some team personnel, things like that. So hopefully we'll have some of that out on the horizon. But until then, just kind of standing by and hoping for some good news.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, no, thanks, guys. So this was fantastic. Really enjoyed talking to you guys, and appreciate what you guys are doing. Like Chris said, bringing YouTubers on and talk F1 during this crazy time. And hopefully we can do this again down the line because I had a ton of fun, and I think it'd be a fun little series we could do together to talk F1 in general. It'd be a lot of fun for everyone, and hopefully we have a race soon, and hopefully we can set something up with some former drivers and current drivers. But we'll just have to wait and see, and we can hopefully ride this thing out together as a community.
We can, mate. No, it's been an absolute pleasure having you guys on as well. Really, really do appreciate it. Appreciate it as well. See you later, guys.